Hello artists, today we're going to work on watercolor and tempera cake techniques. This sheet that you're going to get has multiple boxes on it. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes. You're going to need to do a different technique in each box. The directions are: use crayon on the first box, put tape in the second box, and gather paper towel and salt. Paint half of the layer box first. So let's look at that. Crayon resist. First thing you're going to do is pick out just some crayons. You're going to draw some things in here. Please don't color in the whole box. Try to press hard. Experiment with trying to use white, because that's pretty cool effect. Next it says tape, and you can also use stickers for this, so I'm going to give you a couple of little eyeball stickers. You can stick those on just wherever, and then on their tape you can take your tape, cut off a piece, or tear off a piece. I just tear usually. You can even cut your tape into special shapes if you want, like triangles or whatever. We're going to skip down to layers, and the first direction was to paint that one with layers. So I'm using watercolors. You can use tempera cakes also if you choose. I've got my water bowl ready. I've got my brush. I'm going to go ahead and add water to my green. I like to add a lot of water to get a puddle going. We don't want it sticky, we want it puddly. And I'm going to paint that. Now, I've got to let that dry to do the next step. So I'm going to skip this one. And I've got one that's already dry. So I'm going to take this one. I've got this done. Now I'm ready to start painting the other techniques, because that has to be done first. I'm going to set that one to the side and pull over the one that I already did earlier. I got my crayon, I got my tape. This is dry now. Don't forget to write your name and your art code at the bottom. So let's talk about the first three. Okay, crayon. You have to put the crayon on before. It's resist because it resists the paint. If you pressed hard enough, it'll show up under the paint. See how it kind of pools on top and moves away? So I'm going to try resist. You can see I did a little white right there, and they were mixing a little bit, and that's okay. Now, so my white's still showing up, my green's still showing up, my gray's still showing up. That's crayon resist. Tape. Tape is, you won't see the effect of tape until later, because you have to paint over the tape. So paint over the tape, and later we'll take off the tape and we'll see what it looks like. You can do whatever colors you want, and you can also use the tempera cakes for this. Okay? Wet on wet. Let's talk about wet on wet. Wet on wet means you're taking your paper, you're getting it wet. Then you're taking the paint and you're dropping it on. It's a really cool effect. It kind of makes it look like a little tie-dye effect. You can mix colors this way. They kind of ooze together. You can even like tilt your paper and do different things like that to make it do things. If you get too much, you can always take your paper towel. Yeah, I got a little too much water. And just dab it. This is just an experiment, so we're just trying out the techniques. Be thinking as you're working which techniques you think you would like to do for a project, because you're going to have to pick 2 or more to do in a project. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next one, paper towel, and I'm going to switch to the tempera cakes for this. Paper towel. So I'm going to get my tempera cakes wet. Remember to add lots of water when you're dry like this, or they won't work. Go in circles. So I'm painting on. Got a little bit of green over there, but that's okay. I'm going to try some blue. So how this works for paper towel is this. While it's wet, you're going to scrunch up your paper towel into a little point, and you're going to go. It's going to make a cool kind of textured effect. That's paper towel. Wet on dry. Wet on dry is just what we've been doing. It's just normal painting. You're just taking your paints and you are painting right on the paper. The paper's dry, you're painting on it. It's wet on dry. Wet paint on dry paper. It doesn't move as much when you have dry paper. When you have wet paper, it moves a lot more. Okay? My layers kind of got wet, But I'm gonna go ahead and show you that one. So it needs to be dry. Layers, what I want you to do is leave part of it the regular color and leave part of it, so you're only doing half of it, so you're painting the other half and in the middle. So notice the color change in the middle. When I did a layer, it kind of turned into a purple instead of pink. So remember to leave half of it white, half of it one color, and then paint over, and it makes layers. Salt. This one's pretty fun. A lot of friends like salt. I'm going to switch back to watercolors. This is what my salts look like. They're just little old medicine bottles, and they have holes drilled in the top. Do not take the tops off. If it gets empty, let me know. You just turn it over and shake it like a salt shaker. So let's try that one. Salt. I'm going to do some orange, and I'm going to do some red. Has to be wet for this technique to work. I'm going to shake some salt on it. It makes a kind of polka dotted effect. That has to dry. We can't do anything about that right now. Blowing. Blowing is a cool effect. Some friends like to use it. Sometimes it makes friends lightheaded. So if you put the paint on in a glob, we've also used straws for this. You kind of need a big puddle of paint. And I'm going to move my paint out of the way, and then I'm going to go. And if you turn your paper different ways, that's a cool one. It blows out different directions. This one is a blank box. You can choose how to do that one however you like. Just experiment, try some other techniques, see what happens. Okay, that's watercolor tempera cakes and techniques. Think about the ones you like, because we are going to pick some for our project. Bye, friends.